We will thrive.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me today. Thank you for this excellent event. It's wonderful to be here. And it's excellent also to follow Jean, who I've had the pleasure of meeting very recently and had an excellent conversation with a couple of weeks ago. So, regarding this session, we are going to start big. I'd like you to write down the biggest challenge you face today in your work, life, or career. Have you written it down? Work, life, or business challenge. Write it down. You don't need to write an essay, just a few words that describe the challenge, the biggest challenge that you face today. Do you have it down? Now, I would like you to raise your hand if you would like to have this same challenge 3 years from today. Raise your hand. Now, I know you're all at home, but I can see you. I can see you if you have your hands up. Virtually, I see you all. I don't believe anyone would like to have the same challenges you have today in 3 years. Our goal today is not simply to inspire you. Our goal is to ensure that you have extraordinary results and that you have better, newer, and different challenges from moving on to the next stage in life. Our goal is that you do not remain stagnant and in the same place as you are today. I love inspiration, but I'm not here to inspire you today. I also love painting beautiful pictures, but that's not what I'm going to do today either. Today, I will invite you to use 2 tools to create your future. Your ability to use these 2 tools will determine the extent to which you can have powerful results in the future. Now, what are those 2 tools? Those tools are pain and fear. I know, I told you they were not going to be beautiful. Pain and fear. Now, before I tell you about these 2 things, I hope it's okay if I told you a little bit about myself. So I grew up in Nigeria. I was born in Nigeria, and I'm one of 5 children. Actually, my siblings are watching today. So hello to my awesome siblings who are watching today. My family and I relocated to the United States in 1995. I love to call this my wonderful Wizard of Oz story. The reason I call it that is because much earlier in life, when I was much younger, we had visited Kansas City. Now, Kansas City is no New York City. When we arrived in New York City, big city, bright lights. I had a feeling we were not in Kansas anymore. Now, my dream when we arrived in New York City was to be an international lawyer, and I've become that. My dream was to go to Harvard Law School, and I did. Today, I oversee Citi's global anti-bribery program, which means that my team and I are responsible for ensuring that whenever the bank does business and wherever the bank does business, that we do business ethically and in accordance with the highest ethical standards. We abide with all of the laws that apply to our business in over 160 countries. I'm also the first to hold the title of Chief Anti-Bribery Officer in the bank's over 200-year history. The former CEO of Avon, her name is Andrea Jong. She also happens to be the first female CEO of Avon. One of the things she said is, "What good is it to be first if you're the last?" And that really resonated with me because I believe that we should create more and more leaders, more and more pioneers, and more firsts. So that's the driving force behind my book, Brilliance Beyond Borders, 5 Traits of remarkable immigrant women leaders. Actually, earlier today, my book agent, Leticia Gomez, spoke about being a literary agent and what a literary agent does for you. So it was phenomenal to see her here earlier today. In each of the pivotal points in my life and career, there was fear and there was pain. But the funny thing is, unfortunately, we run from these things. So today I want to talk about how we can use them as tools to create the future. So let's begin with pain. How can you use pain to gain leverage on yourself? So pain is one of the least understood and the least utilized points of leverage. So think of the challenge you wrote down earlier. Here are some questions you can use to gain leverage on yourself as you think about that challenge. First question, why don't you already have the results you want? Second question, what is at stake? Third question, what would happen if you never solve this challenge? Fourth question, what conversation would you have with yourself in 3 years if you never solve this problem? So the second tool, which is fear. Now let's talk about fear. I have to say, fear gets such a bad rap, right? I recently heard a quote in a video. It was a quote by Dr. Smiley Blanton, who was a colleague of Norman Vincent Peale. And it goes as follows. Fear is the most subtle and dangerous of diseases. Yikes. What to do with that when fear happens to be an emotion that we all experience from time to time? It's a natural human emotion. And so, especially when you're taking on big goals and big challenges, we started with a big question, right? So when you're taking on big questions, you are likely to experience fear. So I won't tell you to be fearless, and I won't tell you that fear is the enemy. I would encourage you instead to use fear as a fuel to create your future, to fall in love with fear. Yeah, you heard that right. Fall in love with it. Why? Because fear is a messenger and it can be a powerful tool. That's why. So here are 3 ways to use fear as fuel. First, acknowledge it. As I said, it's just an indicator. You don't consider the gas gauge on your car the greatest disease of all time. You just identify the message and you act on it. You fill your tank. The second thing is to make sure that you have a clear vision of where you want to go. And that picture must be clearer than the fear. And now, if you have not defined what you want your legacy in the world to be, you should definitely take the time to decide what you want your legacy to be. What are your most important outcomes? Finally, in terms of fear, step into the breach. There will always be a gap between where you want to go and where you are. But the only way to close that gap is by starting to take massive and consistent action. So use fear to propel you. Fear stagnation, fear staying in the same place, and fear not creating your most important outcomes. So in closing, I urge you to use your pain and fear to fight for your legacy. And I'll quote one of my coaches, Coach Brian Nunez, who has said, fight for your life, fight for progress, and fight for greatness. Thank you.